On this Sunday night, mounting pressure for Trudeau to resign. A clear consensus from the Ontario caucus.
Caucus members want Justin Trudeau to step aside.
And the new Liberal attack ad that's curiously missing the party's leader. New details emerge about the suspect in Friday's deadly Christmas market attack in Germany. His history and the red flags dating back years.
You also had warnings that he is getting quite weird.
The real-life reindeer in BC's interior in need of protection, preserving the habitat for the deep snow caribou. And shoppers brave the crowds on the final weekend before Christmas. The jammed malls, the last-minute deals in the build-up to the big day.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. He survived a week of political chaos that saw Chrystia Freeland resign from his cabinet and all opposition parties vow to topple his government. But the pressure on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to step down continues to build, this time from Ontario's Liberal MPs. Those parliamentarians make up 60% of the Liberal caucus. And yesterday, in a teleconference, they reached what's being described as a clear consensus that Trudeau must go. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, has our top story. David.
Well, Carol, an Ottawa MP, Chandra Arya, had already gone on record earlier this week calling for Justin Trudeau to step down and to be replaced by Chrystia Freeland. And Arya participated in Saturday's caucus meeting, and while he doesn't want to violate caucus confidentiality, he does believe Ontario's Liberals are ready for a new leader.
I was fairly confident that vast majority of caucus members want Justin Trudeau to step aside. So that was a sort of a reconfirmation, though I can't say what happened in the caucus.
Other Ontario Liberal MPs said about as much, one saying that a, quote, clear consensus emerged that Trudeau has to go. Sources told Global and the Toronto Star that Toronto MP Nate Erskine-Smith, who was just sworn in Friday to sit in Justin Trudeau's cabinet, was among those saying that Trudeau should not lead the party into the next election. Erskine-Smith did not respond to reporters' questions. Now it will be up to the Ontario caucus chair Michael Coteau, a Toronto MP, to report those findings to the party leadership. Coteau, too, did not respond to interview requests Sunday. But will it make a difference in Trudeau's deliberations? That's unknown. Trudeau was in Ottawa Sunday with no public event scheduled, and his office also was not responding to reporters' questions. Atlantic Canada Liberal MPs will hold a caucus meeting of their own Monday. Meanwhile, the Liberal Party of Canada unveiled a new video ad that will debut online tomorrow and on television during the World Junior Hockey Championships. The ad does not feature Justin Trudeau at all. Instead, it is a rather gentle attack ad in which actors speaking quietly over soft piano music criticize Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre.
I heard that Poilievre voted against $10 a day childcare.
And what does Chrystia Freeland think of all this? Well, some of her caucus colleagues want her to replace Trudeau. And she was in on that Ontario caucus meeting on Saturday, but she's not talking about it right now. And a source close to Freeland tells Global News that the chatter about her succeeding Trudeau as leader is getting, quote, way ahead of itself. She'll be spending the holidays in her Toronto home with her family. Carolyn.
David Akin in Ottawa, thank you. The German government is vowing to investigate whether a deadly Christmas market attack could have been prevented. 5 people were killed and 200 injured when a vehicle plowed into a busy market Friday night. As Mike Armstrong reports, new details are emerging that authorities previously received multiple warnings about the suspect.
With its Christmas market still closed, Magdeburg mourned Sunday outside a nearby church. The sea of flowers and candles started on the steps, but as it grew, spilled onto the sidewalk and then the street. The mother of a 9-year-old boy who was killed posted on social media. She says he never did anything to anyone and that she doesn't understand what happened. Well, as the hours have passed since Friday's attack, more details about the suspect have emerged.
in order to avoid the difference.
This is an interview given by Talib Abdel-Hosen earlier this month, where he said he was helping ex-Muslim refugees fleeing persecution from Saudi Arabia. The 50-year-old lives in a town about a half-hour drive south of Magdeburg. He's a permanent resident. He arrived in 2006, originally from Saudi Arabia. Authorities confirmed Sunday the suspect was fined in 2013 for threatening members of the local medical association. It was a dispute over exam results. Now, Al Abdel-Hosen has a history of anti-Islamic rhetoric online and in interviews. A former Muslim, he's described himself as the most severe critic of Islam imaginable. One German group for former Muslims says he terrorized them for years. There appear to be other red flags that were missed as well. There are reports Saudi officials warned Germany on a number of occasions about the suspect's radical views.
You also had warnings domestically in Germany from people who knew him to the police that he is getting quite weird.
Now, another part of the investigation into the attack is around security. Germany had a similar attack in 2016. It was 8 years almost to the day. A truck was driven into a Christmas market in Berlin. 12 people were killed. In the latest attack, the market did have barricades. The site was supposed to be protected, but police say the suspect drove through a gap that was left open for emergency vehicles. A small security lapse that was large enough for 3 minutes of carnage and victims again. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
With only a month to go before Donald Trump officially reclaims the White House, the president-elect's team is already preparing to roll back a number of policies from the Biden administration. Trump is expected to sign a flurry of executive orders in his first week in office to make good on his campaign promises on everything from energy to immigration. Reggie Cecchini reports.
The power of the U.S. presidency is sweeping, and come January 20th, Donald Trump and his team are signaling intent to take advantage.
It will be Liberation Day in America.
To carry out his mandate, bringing change across the federal bureaucracy, dozens of executive orders will be waiting in the Oval Office.
But it really sends a signal to your constituency about what is important to you and what you're going to do on day one.
It's believed Trump will use his iconic signature to repeal Joe Biden's energy and climate policies and claw back regulatory matters he says are driving up costs.
This will be the most exciting and successful period of reform and renewal in all of American history.
But it's policy surrounding immigration that will likely rest atop the pile.
We have rules, regulations, laws that came in illegally.
There was a bipartisan plan aimed at border security, but to keep the crisis alive during the campaign, Trump had a hand in killing it. Now that he'll be in charge again, his vision might run afoul of American rules and law.
It's a way to say, here's what I'm starting with, here's everything I'm doing, let's go. The only way we'll know if it doesn't follow the rules is if someone challenges it, so it'll be a temporary edict.
One of Trump's ideas would be to end birthright citizenship. He's also mused about stripping naturalized residents of their right to stay in America, typically left for people who pledge allegiance elsewhere. But it's unclear if he can do it.
There is a law that governs this, not an executive order, a legislative enactment.
Playing on fears, Trump argued illegal immigration has resulted in a spike in crime, though stats say otherwise. Analysts say there are some 13 to 14 million immigrants in the U.S., either illegally or with temporary status. And it's unclear if so-called sanctuary cities will give an assist to immigration officers, given the impacts it could have on the economy.
Labor economists have consistently said that there are key sectors of the American workforce that are short on labor. The multi-pronged plan to reduce immigrants and to denaturalize citizens would exacerbate a labor shortage.
Trump's responses to concerns with immigration and refugee matters is set to be marshaled in with little opposition. And after facing resistance during his first term, he's surrounded himself with new people with new visions that could better withstand legal objections. Reggie Cecchini, Global News, Washington.
More Starbucks workers joined the picket lines in the U.S. today. The 5-day strike began Friday after negotiations between the union and the company broke down. The job action has now expanded to 4 more locations. Baristas in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, and St. Louis joined 6 other cities where employees are calling for better pay and conditions. The strike action is expected to grow every day until there's an agreement and could impact hundreds of stores by Christmas Eve. Well, it is bitterly cold across parts of eastern Canada, adding to concerns for those without housing. Today, Toronto closed 2 warming centres to new admissions. They were opened this weekend to provide extra shelter during the cold snap. The city has added even more warming sites and will provide transportation to those that have space. In Nova Scotia, there are growing concerns about homelessness in rural communities. One of the largest encampments in the province is set up on a floodplain. As Angela Capobianco reports, its location could become a major safety issue come spring.
With over 20 people residing at the Meadow Drive encampment just outside Truro, it's brought to the forefront just how prevalent rural homelessness is in the province. Davy Rose, the outreach coordinator for the Truro Housing Outreach Society, wouldn't call this a homelessness crisis, though.
I would say it's really speaking volumes to the housing crisis that we're in. You know, we're not in a homeless crisis, we're in a housing crisis. So folks are living outside because they don't have a place to call home.
They acknowledge housing people is complicated and a village of support is needed.
So aside from the affordable housing piece and building that and making that available, it's definitely having, you know, other community organizations and agencies involved as well, so people can have that wraparound of support.
Christine Blair, the mayor of Colchester County, says the municipality is limited in what it can do, but is working to support organizations through grants. There's been an increased worry over unhoused people dying rurally after 2 men died recently in the Annapolis Valley. She adds one of her concerns is the location of the encampment along the Salmon River.
We're certainly not encouraging anyone to live there because it's a definite concern, and it is a floodplain, and it has flooded in the past, and there's no guarantees it won't flood in the future.
It's a concern Mike McKay shares, a volunteer at the encampment providing hot meals to those unhoused.
It's not so much the winter that concerns me. It's the spring, because they're on a floodplain, and usually every spring that's under about 2 to 3 feet of water, right? So to me, it's very important that we either, if we can't find housing, that maybe the town of Truro will give a spot where we can move the encampment to.
He adds that more housing at accessible rates is needed.
Unhoused, we need low-income housing, right? And there's such a lack of it that, like, even social assistance doesn't even match up to renting a room anymore.
Angela Capobianco, Global News, Truro.
Israeli airstrikes kill another 22 people in Gaza. This as there are signs Hamas and Israel are inching closer to a ceasefire deal. The latest ahead. Israel's onslaught in Gaza is showing no sign of easing, despite reports that Hamas and Israel are closer than ever in securing a ceasefire. Today, the Hamas-run health ministry said in the last 24 hours, at least 22 people have been killed by Israeli strikes. A Palestinian official said a ceasefire deal is 90% complete and that Hamas will agree if Israel stops imposing new conditions. The U.S. military says it mistakenly shot down one of its own fighter jets over the Red Sea earlier today in what it says was an apparent case of friendly fire. The U.S. Central Command says the incident happened as the U.S. carried out airstrikes targeting Yemen's Houthi rebels. One of its guided missile cruisers fired and hit the F-A-18 fighter jet that was flying off another aircraft carrier. Both pilots ejected safely and were rescued. One suffered minor injuries. In Nigeria, at least 32 people are dead after crowds rushed for food at 2 Christmas charity events. At least 10 people died in a crush in the capital as people surged to collect food and clothing being handed out by a local church. And in the country's southeast, another incident claimed the lives of 22 people after a community member offered gifts, including rice, cooking oil, and money. A small plane has crashed in the center of a tourist city in southern Brazil, killing all 10 people on board. The crash happened minutes after takeoff. The aircraft collided with the chimney of a building and a house before crashing into a furniture store. At least 17 people on the ground were injured. The resort town is popular with tourists, especially around Christmas. Ahead, the endangered caribou of BC's interior and concerns that logging may be threatening their habitat. That's next. New concerns are being raised about the protection of endangered caribou herds in southeastern BC. Southern mountain caribou are threatened. The province has even encouraged wolf hunting and habitat protection to conserve their numbers. But as Paul Johnson reports, environmentalists say logging is happening in forests caribou depend on to survive.
This time of year, the folklore of the reindeer is something people like to talk about. But reindeer are actually caribou, and BC has some very special herds of them, the so-called deep snow caribou.
These caribou are unique to Canada. They don't live anywhere else in the world. Canada has sole responsibility for their persistence.
They get their name because of their ability to survive the winter by eating lichens on trees when the snow is too deep. But in recent decades, clear-cut logging has decimated the old forests that have those lichens. One herd has become functionally extinct, and to try and protect those that remain, the government declared parts of their territory off-limits to logging. But did they really?
You cannot call them no harvest zones when logging is still on the table.
Lucero Gonzalez is a campaigner with the Wilderness Committee. Through map analysis and field visits, they say they found dozens of hectares of clear-cuts in the Revelstoke area that were supposed to be off-limits to help the caribou. This, she says, thanks to loopholes in the province's rules.
How are they still allowing policy loopholes to get in the way of protecting an endangered species?
BC's Ministry of Forests told Global News that they're aware of the claim and are currently looking into it. In other ways, Victoria has shown it's deeply serious about caribou preservation, as shown by its controversial wolf kill program, which sees hundreds of wolves gunned down from helicopters every winter to try and help caribou. While the government insists the wolf kill program is working, conservationists say the bigger threat to caribou is the ongoing loss of their habitat.
To sort of organize our forests, our forest management in ways that chip away at their future existence is on a global stage entirely irresponsible.
Paul Johnson, Global News.
Next, the countdown is on and the malls are filling up. We check in with shoppers on the last weekend before Christmas. Well, it's the last weekend before Christmas, and if you're like many, that means you were in a mall this weekend. Stores were jammed today as people search for that special something for under the tree. Megan King braved the crowds to see how last-minute shoppers were faring.
Finding a parking spot, waiting in line, and picking the perfect gift, just some of the tasks many faced this weekend, taking on the hustle and bustle of malls for a last chance to shop ahead of the holidays.
I came early today to beat the traffic and stuff, so I'm fine. I'm leaving now. It's a Sunday before Christmas Eve. I'm done my shopping. I feel good. Go wrap up my presents.
For some, the day marked finally completing their to-do lists.
I got all my gifts, so my shopping is done. The stress is, past, and I'm just waiting for the holidays to come now so I can enjoy it with family.
There's no rush. We started early, got exactly what we wanted, so now it's time to just wrap and hand out.
Although for others, there's a long road ahead.
Do you have all your presents?
Not yet, we just started.
A little bit of stress. Yesterday I have to review how many gifts I was missing.
Well, both stressful and exciting because it's a lot of work, a lot of carrying stuff and a lot of driving around, but also very exciting.
This holiday season, it'd be no surprise if shoppers feel that time got away from them.
There are 5 less shopping days between Black Friday and Christmas. There's uncertainty with the postal strike, and for the first time in decades, Christmas and Hanukkah coincide on the same day.
All of that amounting to big crowds in shopping centers looking for that last-minute find.
I think the priority is finding the gifts that they want for the holiday season to gift to the ones they love.
Mall officials say that peak shopping times are between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m., so they're recommending to last-minute shoppers to get out early in the day or late in the evening to avoid those crowds. Carolyn.
Thanks, Megan. And that is Global National for this Sunday night. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. For tonight's Air Canada, One Santa in Nova Scotia is taking a different approach to spreading holiday joy this week. Ultra-marathon runner Ryan Keeping has been out in the Halifax cold since yesterday morning, aiming to run, get this, 250 kilometres, all to raise $10,000 for the Ronald McDonald House Charities. This is Keeping's third year for the event. He completed 100 kilometres in 2022, then pulled off 200 last year. Thanks for watching. Donna will be back with you tomorrow. Have a great night.